In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a responsive design from scratch if you either haven't started your project yet or things have caused a lot of complexity and problems, so you just want to start from scratch at this point. So the first thing we'll do is create a new pen, and I'm just going to call this, I'll call it responsive design template. There we go. Okay. We're using Bootstrap for the layout, so I'm going to go to getbootstrap.com and get started. Now you notice we're now up to the beta release of version 5. This won't have much effect on your designs because we're just using it for the layout. We're not using it for any other purpose, and the layout, to the best of my knowledge, stays the same. So you can see here we've got our CSS, and we want to copy this link here. They have a handy copy button, so I'm just going to click copy, go back to responsive design template in CodePen, go to settings, and we go to HTML and paste this link in stuff for head. So I'm just going to save that. So we now have a link to Bootstrap so that we can do the layout. The first thing we need to do is set a container around our work, and this will contain the main elements. So I will go div class equals container, and then of course we end that div as well. You can use container or you can use container fluid. Just be aware, container fluid goes right to the edges of the page, so you may need to use additional CSS to constrain that width to ensure you have margins. I'm going to keep it simple and just keep container for now. Now you need to create your rows, and remember we're looking at the computer view of this so that we can have columns side by side and you determine how many rows there are. So in this example here, I will have a row for the header, I'll have a row at the bottom for the footer, I'm going to have a section in the middle with 2 columns, a section with 1 column, and a section with 2 columns. We'll just give a bit of variety that way. So I need to make sure I've got rows for each. So div class equals row, and make sure you end that div. Now, rather than retyping this, I'm just going to copy and paste it. So this one here can be for the header. I'll use comments so I remember what each of these sections are for. So I've got header, div class row. Then I want to have 2 columns, and I'll paste another row there. I'm just going to try and get the indentations nice and neat. I'll do another one with 1 column. We'll put those rows in again, and actually, I'll show you how to do 3 columns. So 3 columns down here. Paste that row in again. And lastly, we're going to have 1 column for the footer. Okay, so we now have all of our rows. So check your wireframe design and see how many rows you have in your design and put the rows in like this, remembering to have a div class equals row to start the row, and then you make sure you end that div. At the bottom of your document now you should have 2 end divs. This one ends the row above it, this one ends the container. Now we're going to add the columns. I'm going to keep all the columns of equal width. That will make it nice and easy. I'll just briefly show you how to make different widths, but let's start with making them the same width. So we do another div, class equals col. Make sure you do this even if you've only got 1 column in an entire row, because it has built-in padding that will help with alignment of your items. So I'm just going to copy this because it's easier than typing it each time. Each of your columns you need this div class col and an end div. So here I've got div class col, and we want 2 columns, so we need it here twice. There we go. So we've got row, div class col, and then the end div. Make sure if you want columns side by side, they have to be surrounded by a row. Don't automatically put them all in separate rows, because each row is going to create a line break and put it below the previous one. If you want them side by side, they literally have to be side by side like this. The next section, we want one column. So I'm just going to paste that in here, and we've just got one here. And here we want 3 columns. So I paste 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 columns side by side. I'll just put some content in so that you can see this in action. So I've just added some CSS to the column to show you how this layout works. It's got a background color, a height, and a border of white. But I can also see my footer isn't working, and that's because I haven't put the column here. So let's do this right now. Div class equals col, and again, you do this even though it's all on its own in a row. You still need to have the column there. So we can see the layout emerging, which is great. So this gives us a basic layout. However, it's not going to change anything for our mobile views. You see how these columns get very, very narrow. So we're going to want to change the layout for mobile view so that these 2 columns end up the full width of the device and wrap, so that this column 1 is above this column 2. And the same with our layout where we have the 3 columns. We're going to want to stack them. So let's go and do that right now. And it's not that difficult. For the ones that are already 12 columns wide, we just leave them as is. So the header can just say the same. It really is anytime you've got the side-by-side columns, you want to wrap them. And to do this, we rely on the 12 column grid, which is Bootstrap. If you go to above 12 columns wide, it's automatically going to wrap the next column on the next line. And so we make the most of that. So Bootstrap is mobile first. The col is for mobile device and above. It's for extra small and anything larger than that. So we want to say col 12 wherever we have the columns side by side. And you see how now it's wrapping that immediately. We need to then give it an instruction for what to do when you get to a large screen. So I'm just going to increase the size here. So here we give it another instruction. So it inherits up. For extra small, it's 12 columns wide. For small, it's 12 columns wide. For medium, it's 12 columns wide. Then once we get to large, col LG, so it's different because we're giving a size, col LG, and then we can say 6. We basically halve the width. Now you notice it's not working yet, and that's because this one is still 12. So it's saying, well, 12 and 6, that equals 18. That's greater than 12. So we need to wrap this column here. So again, we need to go in and say col large 6. So as long as the large settings equal 12 or less, they will be made side by side. Okay, and we will do that with the 3 columns down here. So again, because in the mobile view we want it to be 12 wide, the full width of the device makes it much easier to use. And then we can say col LG, and what's 12 divided by 3 is 4. So remember, these have to add together to make 12 or less. So at least it's not having to add up to too great a number. And there we go. We've got 3 lots of 4, that is 12, and so they should fit side by side. Now let's change our view to full page view. Okay, that's not working. Why is that not working? I do not know. Let's have a look here.